My dad said families got each other's back, then demanded my house for my brother because he had a baby on the way. So I told him, "You don't get to say that after ignoring me my entire life. I'm the older sibling, 24M, and my brother Jonathan is 17, 7 years apart. That's enough of a gap that we never really got along. Honestly, I think things started going downhill from the moment he was born. Even as a kid, I could tell that my parents' world revolved around him. It's like he was their golden child, and I was just there. I used to think maybe I was just imagining things, like maybe I was being dramatic, but the more I look back, the more I realize how messed up it all was. For example, let's start with last Christmas. Jonathan got a PS5, brand new, the whole setup, everything he could ever want. Me, I got socks. No joke. Plain white socks from Walmart. I don't even care about the socks themselves. I could live with that. But the part that gets me is that it was the only gift under the tree for me. Everyone was gathered around, all smiles and laughs, as Jonathan tore through his gifts like a rabid animal. The whole house was buzzing with excitement, all for him. And then there's me, holding a small package of socks with this fake smile plastered on my face, while everyone completely ignored me. The crazy part is, this wasn't a one-time thing. It was like this my whole life. My birthdays, forget about it. The last time my family even acknowledged my birthday was when I was like 10. Since then, they either forgot or just didn't bother. For my last birthday, I celebrated with friends from college because my parents didn't even say, "Happy birthday." No call, no text, nothing. But Jonathan's birthdays, oh man, they go all out. Last year, for his 16th, my parents threw this massive party. They invited all the family, all his friends, even rented a freaking bouncy house and hired an entertainer, some kind of magician or whatever. The house was covered in decorations. They had the whole thing catered. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like the Super Bowl of birthdays. I didn't even get an invite. Yeah, you read that right. I wasn't even invited to my own brother's birthday party. I didn't find out about it until the day before, and when I mentioned it to my parents, they brushed it off, saying they didn't think I'd want to come since I was busy with school. Honestly, I just went out with my friends that day, trying to forget the whole thing. But even as we hung out, I couldn't shake this feeling of being left out, like I didn't belong in my own family. But the real kicker came when my birthday rolled around this year. I didn't expect anything. I've learned not to, but I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd at least acknowledge it. No, nothing. I spent the day with my college friends again. They threw me a small party in the dorms, and it was fun, but it's not the same, you know? Your birthday is supposed to be something your family celebrates with you, even if it's small. Jonathan's birthdays always reminded me of what I was missing, like the time he turned 10, and my parents turned the house into some ridiculous pirate adventure theme with treasure hunts, costumes, the works. Meanwhile, when I turned 10, we had pizza. That's it, and I thought I was lucky to get that. What really hurts is that it's not just about the gifts or the parties. It's the constant reminder that I'm not the favorite, that I never will be. I've tried so hard to be a good son, to get good grades, stay out of trouble, do everything they asked, but none of that mattered. Jonathan always had this charm. He's outgoing, athletic, all the things I'm not, and my parents ate it up. When he was born, I remember being so excited to have a little brother. I thought we'd be best friends, play video games together, hang out like the brothers you see in movies. But it didn't take long for me to realize that Jonathan wasn't interested in me either. He had his friends, his sports, and all the attention he could ever want. I was just there. I was the backup plan, the forgotten kid. Now, I'll admit, as we both got older, I started to resent him. I don't think it was his fault at first, but he started to realize how much power he had. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. If we got into a fight, guess who got blamed? Me. Always me. If he messed up, my parents would just laugh it off, or even blame me for not helping him enough. It didn't matter what he did. I was always the bad guy. One time, I remember Jonathan lied about breaking the TV. He had this friend over and they were roughhousing or whatever, and they knocked the TV off its stand. The thing was practically shattered. My parents came home, and Jonathan pointed straight at me, claiming I had been the one to knock it over. I wasn't even home, but guess what? They believed him. They grounded me for a month, took away my phone, and acted like I was some kind of criminal. At that point, I just gave up. I started keeping to myself more, spent most of my time in my room or at my friends' houses, anything to get away from home. But every time I walked into the house, it was like walking into this constant reminder that I didn't matter. My room was small and cramped, while Jonathan's was decked out with all the latest gadgets and posters of his favorite sports teams. It was like he had his own little kingdom, and I was just some nobody living in the shadows. I'll never forget my 18th birthday. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd do something special for me since I was becoming an adult. But no, I came downstairs that morning, and it was like any other day. My mom was busy in the kitchen, my dad was reading the paper, and Jonathan was playing on his new Xbox. Nobody said a word. No card, no gift, not even a happy birthday. It was like I didn't even exist. That was the moment I realized that things were never going to change. Jonathan had won. He had taken everything from me, my parents, their attention, their love. And the worst part, he probably didn't even know he was doing it. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't care. Either way, I started to hate him for it, not just the usual sibling rivalry stuff. I mean, hate the kind where you lie awake at night thinking about how much better your life would be if they weren't around. I know it sounds extreme, but that's where I'm at. Every time I see Jonathan's face, I just get this burning anger inside me. I can't stand being around him, and I can't stand being in this family anymore. I've tried talking to my parents about how I feel, but they always brush it off, saying I'm being dramatic, or that I should be nicer to Jonathan. But why should I? Why should I be nice to someone who has stolen everything from me? It feels like I'm trapped in this endless cycle of resentment and bitterness. And the worst part is, I don't know how to break out of it. I just want to feel like I matter, like I'm worth something. But in this family, I'll always be second best. I don't know where to go from here. Maybe I need to cut ties with them. Maybe I need to confront Jonathan and let him know how much he's hurt me. Or maybe I just need to keep doing what I've been doing, keeping my distance and trying to live my life without them. I don't know. All I know is that I can't keep living like this. Not anymore. It's been a few years since my last post, and to be honest, I didn't think I'd ever come back here. I thought I had left all that family drama behind me for good. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and the nightmare that I thought I had escaped is now worse than I could have ever imagined. Strap in, because this is a long and messy story. After my last post, I did what I had to do. I distanced myself from my parents. I mean, how could I not? The constant neglect, the blatant favoritism toward my younger brother Jonathan was eating me alive. So I made the decision to go low contact. I moved out of my parents' house as soon as I could, started living with a couple of friends from college, and honestly, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But obviously I still needed to make a living. I'd always been good with graphic design, so I started doing freelance gigs on Fiverr. At first, it was just to pay the bills, but as I started getting more clients and building a reputation, it turned into something bigger. I worked my rear off, late nights, weekends, you name it. I wasn't going to let my family's treatment of me define my success. Then something amazing happened. I met her, Megan. She was everything I could have asked for in a partner, smart, driven, compassionate. She was also a freelancer doing social media management for small businesses, and we instantly clicked. We started collaborating on projects, helping each other grow in our respective fields. Honestly, she was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't invisible. She actually saw me, and she loved me for who I was, not for what I could do for her, not because of some obligation, but because she genuinely cared. As our careers took off, we started dreaming bigger. We moved in together after about a year of dating, and things just kept getting better. We had this crazy idea to pool our savings and buy a house. Not just any house, though. We wanted something special. After months of searching, we found the perfect place, a massive 3-story house in the suburbs. It was more than we ever thought we could afford, but thanks to our combined income, we made it work. We were ecstatic. This was our dream, something we built together. We closed the deal, and 3 days later, we were officially homeowners. That's when the real nightmare started. 3 days after we moved in, I got a call from my mom. At first, I didn't even want to pick up. We hadn't talked much since I moved out, and every conversation we had was either awkward or ended in some kind of argument. But for some reason, I answered, "Hey, honey, we're in town and thought we'd stop by to see the new house," she chirped, acting like everything was normal. I should have known better. I should have known something was off, but against my better judgment, I told her they could come over. I figured it was better to get the visit over with, rather than keep avoiding them. So, a couple of hours later, my parents, Jonathan, and some woman I had never met before showed up at our front door. Now, here's where things get really weird. Jonathan, my younger brother, the golden child, the favorite, wasn't alone. The woman with him apparently was his fiancée, Karen, and she was pregnant. Yeah, you read that right. Jonathan was going to be a dad. No one had bothered to tell me that my brother was engaged, let alone that he was about to have a kid. That was my first red flag. My dad didn't even wait to get inside before he started with the passive-aggressive comments. "Wow, this is the house you bought. Surprised you could afford something like this," he said with this sneer like he was looking down on me the entire time. But I brushed it off. I didn't want to start a fight yet. Once they were inside, things got even more uncomfortable. My mom was trying to make small talk with Megan, who could tell something was off. She kept glancing at me like, "What's going on here?" Meanwhile, my dad and Jonathan were talking in hushed tones, and Karen was wandering around the house like she owned the place. Then, out of nowhere, my dad dropped the bombshell. "We've been thinking," he started, his tone as condescending as ever. "Since Jonathan and Karen are starting a family, and they'll need space for the baby, it would make sense for them to move in here." I stared at him, not fully processing what he had just said. "What? This house is way too big for just you and Megan," my dad continued, completely ignoring my shock. "Jonathan and Karen could really use a place like this to raise their kid. You don't need all this space." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like I was being gaslit in my own home. "You're joking, right?" My dad looked me dead in the eye, and the next words out of his mouth made my blood boil. "No, we're not joking. It's time for you to step aside and let your brother have what he needs. After all, family comes first, and he's starting his own. You and Megan can find a smaller place. This house will be better suited for them." I lost it. All the years of resentment, the neglect, the favoritism, it all came flooding out at once. "Are you serious right now? This is our house. Megan and I bought this place. It's in our names. You can't just waltz in here and decide that Jonathan gets to have it because he got someone pregnant." Jonathan tried to chime in, looking all smug. "Come on, man. It's not like you need all this space. You don't even have kids. We do." "That's not the point," I snapped. "The point is you don't get to just take what's mine because you think you're entitled to it. I've spent my whole life being pushed aside for you, and I'm done with it." That's when my dad started getting really aggressive. He stood up, puffing out his chest like he was trying to intimidate me. "Watch your tone, boy. You should be grateful we're even asking and not just telling you to hand over the keys. This house is going to be Jonathan's whether you like it or not." I saw red. I don't know what came over me, but I snapped. I lunged at him, shoving him back into the wall. "Get the heck out of my house!" I screamed. Megan was shouting at both of us to calm down, but I couldn't stop. Years of pent-up anger were boiling over. My dad shoved me back, and before I knew it, we were in a full-on fistfight, throwing punches and yelling at each other. My mom and Jonathan were screaming, and Karen was standing in the corner frantically dialing her phone. It wasn't until the police showed up that we finally stopped. I guess Karen had called them when things got out of hand. They separated us, cuffed me and my dad, and hauled us down to the station. Sitting in the holding cell, I couldn't believe this was my life. My own father had tried to steal my house from my brother, and now I was sitting in jail because of it. Megan bailed me out a few hours later, but the damage was done. My family was officially broken beyond repair, but it didn't end there. Oh no, it got worse. My dad, in his infinite wisdom, decided to sue me for the house. He actually tried to take me to court, claiming that Jonathan and Karen needed the house more than I did, and that I should be forced to hand it over to them. The sheer audacity of it left me speechless. So, we went to court. I hired a lawyer, gathered all the necessary documents proving that the house was in my name, and prepared for the fight of my life. But here's the thing. I had something else up my sleeve. Years of emotional and psychological abuse had left a trail, and I wasn't about to let it go unnoticed. I gathered evidence, emails, text messages, even witnesses, friends who had seen firsthand how my parents treated me over the years. I brought it all to court. My lawyer argued not only that the house was mine, but that I had been a victim of neglect and emotional abuse for most of my life. I was done playing the quiet, obedient son. It was time to fight back. The court case dragged on for months. My dad tried every trick in the book to make me look like the bad guy. He painted himself as the loving father, just trying to do what was best for his family. Jonathan and Karen played the victims, claiming they needed the house for their baby, and that I was being selfish for not giving it up. But none of it worked. When the final verdict came, it was like a weight lifted off my chest. Not only did the judge rule in my favor, but he also ordered my father to pay me $120,000 in damages for emotional and psychological abuse. I couldn't believe it. For the first time in my life, someone had finally stood up for me, and it felt like justice. After the court ruling, I cut off all contact with my parents and Jonathan. I couldn't take it anymore. The manipulation, the lies, the constant favoritism. Megan and I finally had the house to ourselves, and we started to rebuild our lives. But the scars from everything that happened will never fully heal. Even now as I write this, I still can't believe how far my parents wanted to cheat me over. But I guess that's the way it's always been. Jonathan was the golden child, and I was just an afterthought, but not anymore. It's been about 3 years since I last updated, and I wish I could say life has been smooth sailing. After the insanity with my dad trying to steal my house, I thought things had finally settled down. I thought I had left all the family drama behind me for good. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that my family will never stop trying to drag me back into their toxic mess, no matter how hard I try to distance myself. Let me give you a little background before I dive into the nightmare that happened recently. 3 years ago, Megan and I finally got married. It was one of the happiest days of my life, and I can honestly say it was the best decision I've ever made. Megan stood by me through all the craziness with my family, and after the lawsuit with my dad, I knew that she was the only person I could truly rely on. We had a small, intimate wedding, just close friends and a few relatives from Megan's side. I didn't invite my parents, my brother, or anyone else from my family. After everything they put me through, the manipulation, the abuse, the lawsuit, I didn't see the point. I didn't owe them anything, and I wasn't about to let them ruin my wedding day with their toxic nonsense. Of course they found out. I'm not sure how, but my mom sent me a long guilt-tripping email a few days after the wedding, saying how hurt they were that they weren't invited. My dad didn't bother reaching out, which was fine by me. But Jonathan, my younger brother, he was the one who lost it. I guess I should have seen it coming. Jonathan had always been the golden child, the one my parents bent over backward to please. He never took responsibility for anything in his life, and he always had someone else to blame for his mistakes. After the court ruled in my favor and ordered my dad to pay me $120,000, my parents' financial situation took a hit. They weren't bankrupt or anything, but they weren't living as comfortably as they used to. Jonathan, being the spoiled brat he is, couldn't handle it. He didn't get the house he thought he was entitled to. His dad had to cough up a huge chunk of money, and I guess that was the beginning of the end for him. His fiancée, Karen, left him a few months after the court case. From what I heard through the grapevine, she took the baby and moved back in with her parents. I never got the full story, but I have no doubt it was because Jonathan couldn't handle the pressure. That's where I come in. In his mind, all of this was my fault. My dad losing the court case, their financial problems, Karen leaving him, it was all because of me. And that's when things took a very dark turn. It was about a month after my wedding. Megan and I were still settling into our new life together, enjoying the peace that came with finally being free of my family's toxic grip. One afternoon, I decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. I like to clear my head sometimes, just walking through the quiet streets and enjoying the fresh air. It was a normal day, or at least it should have been. I was halfway down a block when I saw him, Jonathan. He was standing on the corner of the street, staring at me with this look of pure rage in his eyes. I froze for a second, not sure if I was seeing things. We hadn't spoken in years, and I had no idea why he was here in my neighborhood. "Jonathan," I called out confused, "what the heck are you doing here?" Before I could even process what was happening, he came charging at me. He wasn't empty-handed either. He had an iron rod in his hand like something ripped straight out of a construction site. "What the heck, Jonathan?" I shouted, trying to back away, but he was too fast. He swung the rod with all his strength, and before I could even react, it connected with my side. The pain was instant, sharp like fire spreading through my ribs. I doubled over, gasping for breath, but Jonathan wasn't done. He brought the rod down again, this time aiming for my legs. I heard the sickening crack as it connected with my left shin, and I went down hard, collapsing onto the sidewalk. You ruined my life, Jonathan was screaming, his voice cracking with anger. This is all your fault. Dad went broke because of you. Karen because of you. Everything's ruined because of you. I tried to get up to defend myself, but my body wouldn't cooperate. The pain was overwhelming, like every nerve in my body was on fire. Jonathan stood over me, his face twisted in fury, and raised the iron rod again. I braced myself knowing what was coming, but I couldn't move. I was completely helpless. The next blow landed on my right arm, and I felt my bones snap under the force. It was like time slowed down. My vision blurred, and the world around me became distant, muffled like I was underwater. I couldn't even scream. All I could do was lie there waiting for the next blow, wondering if this was how it was going to end. I don't know how long the attack lasted, but at some point I heard voices, distant at first but growing louder. People shouting, footsteps running toward me. I saw someone grab Jonathan, pulling him away from me, but I was too far gone to understand what was happening. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Megan was sitting by my bedside, her face pale, her eyes red and puffy from crying. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and every part of my body screamed in pain. "You're okay," Megan whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're going to be okay." But I wasn't okay. I had multiple fractures, my ribs, my left leg, my right arm. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. If the bystanders hadn't intervened when they did, Jonathan might have killed me. They had to call the police to stop him. Jonathan had been arrested on the spot, taken away in handcuffs while I lay bleeding on the sidewalk. The days that followed were a blur. I was in and out of consciousness, the pain medication keeping me sedated while my body slowly began to heal. Megan stayed with me the entire time, refusing to leave my side. She handled everything, the police reports, the insurance, even hiring a lawyer to deal with the upcoming court case because, yes, there was going to be a trial. Jonathan had been charged with assault with a deadly weapon, and, given the extent of my injuries, he was facing serious jail time. When I was finally lucid enough to understand what was happening, Megan filled me in on the details. Jonathan had completely lost it after Karen left him. He spiraled into a deep depression, but instead of taking responsibility for his own failures, he blamed me. According to the police report, Jonathan told them that he had been waiting outside my house for hours, planning the attack. He came prepared with the iron rod he had taken from a construction site near his apartment. But the worst part, he didn't regret it, not one bit. When the police questioned him, he told them that he deserved to hurt me, that I had ruined his life and that he was just getting justice for what I had done. He truly believed that I was responsible for all of his problems, his fiancée leaving him, our dad's financial troubles, everything. I spent weeks in the hospital recovering from the fractures. Every day was a new kind of hell, physical therapy, endless tests, and the looming court case hanging over my head. I couldn't walk for nearly a month, and even after I was discharged, I had to use crutches and wear a cast on my arm for weeks. The doctors told me it could be months before I was fully healed, and even then, I might never regain full mobility in my left leg. The trial started a few months later. Jonathan pleaded not guilty, of course. He had some twisted idea that he was justified in what he did, that I was the one who pushed him to the edge. His lawyer tried to argue that he had acted out of emotional distress, that he wasn't in the right state of mind because of everything that had happened with our family. But the evidence was damning. There were multiple eyewitnesses, people who had seen Jonathan attacking me, who had intervened and called the police. The prosecution had medical reports detailing my injuries, and the police report clearly showed that Jonathan had planned the attack. He had come to my house with the intent to hurt me, and there was no denying it. Sitting in that courtroom watching my brother try to justify what he had done to me was one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure. He didn't look at me once during the trial, not once. It was like I didn't exist to him anymore. But the worst part, my parents showed up to support him, not me. Him. They sat on his side of the courtroom, listening to him spew lies about how I had destroyed his life, and they nodded along like they agreed with every word. It was like a knife to the gut. After everything they had done to me, after everything he had done to me, they still chose him. They still believed he was the victim in all of this. The trial lasted for a couple of weeks, but the verdict was clear from the start. Jonathan was found guilty of aggravated assault and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole after 3, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I've made peace with the fact that I don't have a family anymore. Not a real one, at least. Megan has been my rock through all of this. She's the only person who stood by me, who never wavered even when things got tough. We've been focusing on moving forward, healing both physically and emotionally. I've been going to therapy trying to work through the trauma of what happened, but it's a slow process. Some days are better than others. Some days I feel like I'm finally making progress. Other days I can't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling like a hollow version of the person I used to be. But one thing's for sure, I'll never let my family hurt me again. I'm done with them completely. If you've made it this far, thanks for reading. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm just trying to take things one day at a time. Life isn't perfect and it never will be, but at least now I know who I can trust, and that's worth more than any family ever could be. Just when I thought I'd heard the last of my parents, they pulled the most insane stunt yet. It had been about 6 months since Jonathan was sentenced. Megan and I were finally starting to get back to some sense of normalcy. The nightmares had lessened, I was making progress in therapy, and we were even talking about starting a family of our own. Life was slowly getting better, that is, until last week. Megan was supposed to meet me for lunch at a cafe near her office. It was something we did often, just a way to break up the workday and spend some time together. But that day she didn't show up. At first I thought maybe she was just running late, so I waited and waited. I texted her, called her phone, nothing. My heart started pounding. Megan is never late, and she always replies even it's just to say she's stuck in traffic. I felt this cold dread creeping over me like something was horribly wrong. I called her office, but they said she had left on time. Panic set in. I didn't know what to do, so I started driving around the area thinking maybe she had been in an accident or her phone had died. That's when I got a call from a blocked number. At first I thought it was a scam, but something told me to answer it. I'm glad I did because what I heard next made my blood run cold. "Your wife is with us." My mom's voice came through the phone, sickly sweet and cold at the same time. "We're taking her somewhere safe, somewhere you won't be able to hurt her anymore." My heart stopped. "What the heck?" I shouted, almost crashing the car. "What the heck are you talking about? Where's Megan? What did you do?" "She's with us now." My dad's voice cut in. "You've poisoned her mind, turned her against her family. We're doing what's best for her. We're taking her somewhere she can think clearly away from you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents had kidnapped my wife. They genuinely believed I was some kind of villain in their twisted narrative, and now they were taking Megan, the love of my life, because they thought they were saving her from me. I don't know how I managed to stay calm, but I told them, "If you don't bring her back right now, I swear to God I'm calling the police." My dad laughed, actually laughed. "You think we're afraid of the police? We're her family, not you. She's better off without you." I had never felt such blind rage in my entire life. I hung up and immediately called the cops. While waiting for them to trace the call, I was losing my mind. All I could think about was what they were doing to her, where they could be taking her. Hours passed, and it felt like an eternity. Finally, I got a call from the police. They had found Megan. My parents had taken her to some rundown motel on the outskirts of town. They were keeping her locked in a room, trying to deprogram her, saying she needed to leave me and come back to the family. Megan, being the brave woman she is, had already managed to escape the room and run to the motel lobby where she begged the clerk to call the police. By the time the cops arrived, she was safe, and my parents were arrested on the spot. They've been charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and a slew of other crimes. I don't know what's going to happen to them now, but I honestly don't care. As far as I'm concerned, they're dead to me. Whatever delusions they've created in their minds, whatever story they've told themselves to justify their actions, it doesn't matter anymore. They tried to take away the one person who means the world to me, and I'll never forgive them for that. Megan is safe now, and that's all that matters. But I'll never forget the sound of my mom's voice when she said they were doing this for her own good. It was like they were living in some alternate reality, where they were the heroes and I was the villain. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing's for sure, I'm done with them forever, and now it's time to finally, truly move on.